Hi everyone, and welcome to another Simplicity Sewing tutorial. My name is Brittany J. Jones, and in today's video, we are going to be sewing 3D flower appliques. These 3D flowers are detachable, so you can make them and put them on an array of different projects. Let's get started with this video where we'll be sewing two flowers from Simplicity 3101, the Gathered Lily and the Gathered Rose. Let's get started. To make our flowers, we will be using the pattern pieces from Simplicity 3101. We will get started with the Gathered Lily, and you will need pattern piece number 10 and pattern piece number 11. In this tutorial, I will be using one of these. I'll be using the large flower, which is pattern piece number 10, but just know that the construction is the same for both. Go ahead and cut out your fabric pieces as well as interfacing pieces, and it's much easier to interface the entire flower pattern block as opposed to cutting them out individually. So as you can see here, I've gone ahead and interfaced the entire flower pattern block. Before cutting, I do recommend making a copy of your pattern block. That way your flowers and everything stay intact and it'll be much easier to cut for future projects. With the fabric pieces right sides facing, I'm just going to pin the pattern piece onto it like so, making it easier for everything to stay together as I begin cutting. I'm going to cut this out using my rotary cutter and my cutting mat, but you're more than welcome to use your scissors if you prefer to cut it out that way. Let's go ahead and cut everything out now and move on to the next step. Now that you have them all cut out, we're going to pin the petal sections together, again right sides facing, having the raw edges even. We're going to stitch them together using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. When we stitch, we will be leaving the short straight ends open. We will clip the curves, turn the petal right side out, and then press. But first, let's go ahead and pin around the petals. Stitch using a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. We're going to leave the short straight edge open, then we will trim our seams and turn everything right side out and press. Let's go ahead and stitch it in place now. Now that we have them all sewn, we can go ahead and trim away the loose threads and then start trimming down our seam allowance for all of the petals. I will be using my pinking shears to just trim around all of the petals, and then again I'm going to flip it right side out, give it a good press. Go ahead and do all of the other petals the same exact way, trim them, flip them right side out, and then give them a press. From just one of the flower pattern blocks, you are able to create two flowers, and you should assemble them as so. You will have 3 large petals, 3 medium petals, and 4 small petals. Taking each group, we are going to stitch them together at a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance along the raw edge, and we're going to have the inner corners meeting. So let's go ahead and stitch that now. Here's a look at how my large petals are looking. Again, you do want to make sure that you have those inner corners touching. You can do that by machine, or you can hand tack them together along that inner corner so that they are touching. Do that for the medium and the small petal groups as well. Taking a needle and some strong thread, whatever heavy duty thread you have will be great. We're going to do long running stitches on the edge of the petal groups at a 1/4 of an inch. So right along that 1/4 of an inch stitching line, we're going to do some long running stitches, and you want the stitches to be about a 1/4 of an inch apart. So again, right along the 1/4 of an inch stitching line that we already made, go ahead and do some long running stitches and have the stitches about a 1/4 of an inch apart. Next, you're going to pull up on the thread to shape the flower. This is going to allow the petals to curl slightly inward. A slight base will form on the bottom. Once it has started to curl, then you just want to secure it in place by joining the first and the last petal together. So again, once you have pulled it to create that curl so that it starts to take shape, go ahead and secure it by attaching the end of the last petal to the end of the first petal like so. And then you can knot and secure your threads, and then repeat those same steps for the medium and small size petal group. Once you have all of the groups formed and secured, you're going to take the medium petal group and place it on top of the large petal group. You can rotate the petals so that the flower will look nice and full, and then taking a needle and thread, you just want to tack the underside of the medium petal near the center of the large petal. So again, just tacking the underside of the medium petal to the center of the large petal. And then you want to repeat that for the small one. You want to tack the underside of the small petal to the center of the medium petal. So go ahead and continue doing that for the small petal group as well. Once you have all of the petals secured, yours should look similar to this. One thing I do recommend is for the smaller one, you want to make sure that you really get it nice and tight. This right here is an example of one that I did, and you can see how you can see a lot of the threads along the inside petal. So just make sure that you really pull and secure the thread so that you have a nice center on the middle of your petal. Next, you want to go ahead and grab a bar pin, and then you would just secure this to the bottom base of the flower. So again, go ahead and secure your bar pin now on the bottom of the flower, and you are all done making your gathered lily. To make the gathered rose, we will be using Simplicity 3101. For pattern pieces, we will need pattern piece 12, 13, 14, and 15. For this tutorial, I will be using the small flower, which is pattern piece number 15, but do know that the construction is the same for the medium and the large flower. To begin, I'm going to start working on the base, and you should cut the base pattern piece out along the outer solid line. We're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the outer edges, and then we're going to do a 1/8 of an inch stitch from the raw edge using a basting stitch. Again, we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch from the outer edge, and then we're going to stitch 1/8 of an inch from the raw edge using a basting stitch. Let's go ahead and do those stitches now. Now that we have it done, yours should look similar to this. Now we're going to turn in the raw edge along the 1/4 of an inch stitching line, and you want to pull on that gathering stitch to ease in the fullness. So as you can see here, I'm pulling on that gathering stitch, and now I'm just going to press along that 1/4 of an inch stitching line. Go ahead and knot your threads, give it a press, and then we can set this to the side to start to work on the rose. To make the roses, we're going to start in the center. We're going to fold the flower in half lengthwise, having wrong sides together. So the right side of the fabric should be out facing you. Make sure that you match up your notches and have the raw edges even. You will have to manipulate the ends to fit because it will be rounded and wavy, and that is normal. Again, you just want to manipulate the ends so that it fits. Go ahead and finish pinning, and do not press this after you have it pinned. Do not press that folded edge. Next, we can head to the machine, and we're going to gather the raw edge. We're going to machine stitch 3/8 of an inch from the raw edge, and then again 1/8 of an inch from the first stitching within the seam allowance. So at first at a 3/8 of an inch, and then at 1/8 of an inch. Let's gather the fabric now. Now that we have the gathers sewn on, now we can go ahead and pull up on the gathers. Each of the flowers have a specific length that you need to gather it up to. For the small flower, it needs to be gathered to 15.5. For the medium flower, 16.5. And for the large flower, 22.5. Because I'm doing the small, I'm going to gather this up to 15.5, and then I'm going to secure and knot the ends of the gathers together. Next, starting at one end, we're going to start to roll the gathered edge of the rose, and we're going to be hand tacking it as we roll it together. So again, you just want to start on one end, rolling it together along the gathered edge, and you want to hand tack it as you roll. Once you have it all rolled up, you can go ahead and trim away your loose thread and secure your tack. I did do an additional rose just to kind of compare the sizing so you can kind of see the difference in the fullness. This one right here is the large, and I will show you what that looks like compared to the small. Next, you want to go ahead and grab your base, and you are going to slip stitch the press edge of the base over the raw edge of the underside of the rose. So again, take your base and you're going to slip stitch that over the underside of the rose. Once you have that slip stitched on, you can go ahead and sew on your bar pin on the underside of the flower. Once you have the bar pin secured, you are all done sewing your gathered rose. Well, that is all for the 3D flower applique video. I really do hope that you found it helpful. Again, you can do so much with these detachable 3D flower appliques, so go ahead and be creative. Until next time, blessings everyone. Bye.